What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla SPY, and the overall market. I'm also going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have big data coming out that's going to affect the way the market ends up moving. But just know that I'm not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on invested cash. The offer ends very soon in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about the markets. So as far as NIO went, I mentioned everyone we were going to be expecting a little bit of a dip right over here back down to about this 4.5 area. And if we lost this, we would have been seeing a move back down to about 4.4. But overall, all that happened was NIO traded completely flat, didn't really move much. And it was a very, very boring day. If anything, we just dipped a little bit. We're only down about 0.2%, or we're only up 0.2%, excuse me. But once again, not really much of a move. So what I think is going to happen to NIO is this. I think that we may continue this consolidation phase for a little bit longer. But as we approach the end of the year, I do expect there to be a very, very big surge in volatility. I think that NIO is going to be looking for some interesting moves. I think that NIO is due for a big bounce, and I think that that could be coming if we get some very strong deliveries numbers. So we'll see how things end up looking for at the end of the year. But for the time being, we remain in this chop zone. Now, there was some news coming out about NIO's price targets, at least for the future. We're starting to see different analysts who are saying that they are expecting revenue to really pick up as time goes on. And there's going to be a lot of drivers to their stock performance, such as the fact that they're launching a lot more models, which are going to be helping them in different markets, especially in different European countries. And then there's going to be more add-on services from battery swap technology and other things just like that. So that is very, very awesome. They have plans to build over 4,000 battery swap stations worldwide by the end of 2025. That's going to continue to grow as time goes on. They also have international expansion, different factors like that that can help them grow. I do want to say I am concerned about some factors, such as the fact that they did miss a lot on earnings the last time the report came out. But as long as we see improvements as the years progress in terms of their revenue and also their overall profitability, and we need to get those margins to improve. One thing that could help that is just scaling at a higher stage to help improve them, at least on a smaller basis. But then on a bigger scale, that can make things a lot better. So it's just like how a small improvement on a bigger end will cause a much larger improvement. So that's what NIO could be going for, slightly improving those margins. But there's other factors as well that are worth mentioning. So as far as the share price goes, I'm still seeing analysts talking about how we could be looking for $26 a share within the next couple of years. And as soon as like next year, we could be looking for this to retest like the $6 to $8 range, if not above that. And that's a pretty big move compared to where we are. I still see potential in this, but we need a lot of growth to come and a lot of improvements in these different factors. Now, for other factors out there's been some more talks about how NIO is going to be preparing us for their next NIO Day. And they're talking about how, they're giving us a lot of information about power swapping. Power swapping is not only for others out there, but it's, their battery is chargeable, swappable, and upgradable. And when it comes to battery swaps, it's not just for broken batteries. And the battery, runs out of juice, you could also do that. And that's the reason why they have, a very, very large amount of them. They're getting a lot better at that system. And it's very, very efficient and quick. Another thing that's worth mentioning is the fact that they have a subscription plan that allows for battery swaps. That's very, very worth it for a lot of users out there who really like this. I think it's very important to note that with the growth that's coming, we need to see a lot better improvements when it comes to other factors like that. And I want to see them really wow investors during the next NIO Day event. So with all this talk about their battery swaps, that's great. Hopefully we see more and more products and a lot more growth driving factors improve. We have about 88 million in volume. That's 1.5 times the average, which is not bad whatsoever. And short volume did go down a bit. That's a good sign. On top of this, Goldman Sachs gave us a sell rating, which is not the best of news. Besides that, the price-price ratio is on a bit of a downtrend right here, so it's losing a little bit of strength. And then on top of this, when it comes to other factors, we have Fridays, which tend to be green only about 53% of the time. There tends to be more volatility at 10 a.m. and also at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And besides that, there's not really much else that's coming out. So that's what I'm seeing, at least thus far, for these different factors. Now, when it comes to overall how things are looking, we're seeing a lot of red, at least for the market for today. We saw some tech stocks such as Google and Meta sell off a bit. Other stocks were flat, such as Apple and Nvda. And besides that, other stocks outperformed like Tesla, whereas most stocks out there were in the red. So very flat day for the markets with some red here and there. That's why we ended up seeing the indices dipping a bit. The question remains, can we hold some supports? So for tomorrow, there is big data coming in that could affect NIO and all the entire broader markets and different companies out there. Tomorrow is going to be Friday, December 6th, 2024. Just know that 1 hour before the market opens, we have very important data. We have the unemployment rate coming out, governmental and manufacturing payrolls, not to mention the labor force participation rate. So look for, look for some volatility an hour before market open. If the numbers are not that great, and the main thing is going to be unemployment. If this goes up a little bit higher than expected, this could cause the market to dip a bit. And if this is decent, the market could attempt to bounce. So we'll have to see what unemployment looks like. Besides that, at 10 a.m., we also have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment data. So look for more volatility at 10 a.m. So we'll see how things end up going. But watch that all very, very carefully as all this data is being released. As far as earnings goes, just know this. There's not really much coming out for tomorrow. Dollar General had very mixed earnings. I didn't see anything too significant for today, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. The Fear and Greed Index is currently at greed. That is a little bit more where we're at right now. We're getting closer to neutral as the market dipped just a little bit. So we'll see how well this ends up holding up. Momentum is still at extreme greed as the market's pushed very, very nicely. The puts and call option ratio is still down. We're not really seeing a big surge in put buying. And the VIX is holding support nicely. So there is a possibility it's trying to bounce. We'll have to see about that. So as far as NIO goes, I'm not really seeing much that's going on. We're just trading sideways in a range. But keep in mind, guys, I'm still very, very interested in what's going to happen for the end of the year. I'm expecting a big move. There could be a big bounce coming towards the end of the year. If we get some very, very strong deliveries, that would be a very, very good sign. And we'll see if that ends up being the case. I think that I've seen people describe a falling wedge on NIO, but I'm not too worried about that for now. We're on a big downtrend right now, so there is a risk of this dipping a little bit more, especially as you have this imbalance to fill. But overall, I think we're going to be fine, at least for many years to come. So for tomorrow specifically, I think NIO is just going to be range bound. We're going to be looking to see what kind of reaction we get depending on the data. But overall, I expect this just completely just trade sideways for the time being. Might be a small dip tomorrow if the market does dip with it, taking us down to about that 4.5 area or below before it tries to bounce again. Look for a little bit more downside, but I'm not really seeing much else that's going on from here. For other factors out there, we have SPY. The 4 hour is looking a little bit more bearish, especially as we got this big rejection right over here. We hit the 608 area, which was very, very tough. We were not able to break past that. Now we're dipping to 606 right now. So if we don't get good unemployment numbers tomorrow and the market dips more, we want to see us lose this 605.25 support, taking us down to 604, then 602. If we get good numbers, we could attempt to rebound above 608. But overall, there's a bit of a downtrend here, and we could dip a little bit lower. For ES, we're on a bit of a rejection right over here as well. We could be dipping lower. We want to see if we could reclaim 6,090 to bounce. Otherwise, there's a risk of us seeing 6,077, then all the way back down to 6,060. So look for a little bit more downside on ES, and that could lead to, there's a stronger possibility of that looking at this trend after this rejection so far. And a revisit of our 20 EMA. We'll have to see what the data causes, but this does look a little bit more bearish. So we'll see just to be safe. Nvda is struggling to break past 146. If we get good data tomorrow, we could attempt to break past that and push up to 147.5. If not, if we don't get the best of data and we do end up dipping, there's going to be a risk of us coming down to 142 and then 141.33. So we'll see which way we end up going. There is that risk of downside, though, so keep that in mind before we see anything else. For Bitcoin, we got this nice little pump to about 102,000, and we're kind of rejecting here. So we want to see if we can reclaim 98,000 or not. There's a little bit of weakness developing on Bitcoin because we're not holding above 100,000 very well. So we might be looking for an attempt to push tomorrow morning to 98,000, but if we can't hold that, this could start dipping back down to 94,000. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a dip that could be coming, a little pop and drop, and that is showing some weakness just to start things off. This could bounce big time later on, but this could just be a very temporary move. For Tesla pumped very nicely. We had a nice cup and handle like breakouts, but just know this, there's very tough resistance at 375. We're not that far from the $400 target. I think that Tesla has more upside later to continue this uptrend, but if we do get a dip tomorrow after the data comes out, we could be revisiting 362 before we try to bounce. If we continue to break out, you want to see it break 375 to the 380 plus area. So we'll just have to see which way we end up going. We might dip a little bit lower for the lower 360s, and we'll see if we bounce off this or not. So give this the time it needs. With that being said, we're on a very, very big uptrend. So even if we do dip a bit, we could still bounce later on and continue to push for new highs. But for tomorrow, it depends on the data. So we'll just have to see what kind of reaction we get. There is that risk of downside looking at the chart. NQ also has that risk of downside. We're struggling to hold above 21,500, but this depends on the data. Good data brings us back above that level, and bad data will take us down to 21,400. QQQ has the same thing going on. If we have good data, we're looking for 523.5 to break to hit 525. And if we don't, if the data causes the market to dip more, we do have this gap to fill around 517. There is a risk of this coming down to 517 if we end up getting a negative reaction. For Aapl, we're just consolidating. We have 244 as our resistance and 242 as our main support. If that fails us, we're looking for essentially 240.5. So watch those levels carefully. This could be dipping a little bit, so just keep that in mind. For a few more, we have the IWM. This is already starting to downtrend, showing some weakness. We'll have to see if we can rebound in the morning to retest 239 if we get a rejection. If we continue to fall and we can't hold above 238, we're looking for 236 as our target. If we break past 238, we have 240 as our resistance. So we'll see if this continues to fall or not. For Coinbase, we pumped very nice and now we're dipping back down. We have 316 as our support. If that fails us, we have 306. And we have this resistance to watch for all the way back up towards this 325 area. So we'll see how things end up going, but overall, just know that we're trying to hold support. This might rebound a bit, but then if we lose that support, we're going to be dipping back down to 306. So look for a small rebound in the morning before a continuation lower is the most likely case. Amazon pushed very nicely up to this 220 area. If we can't hold above that, we're looking for a retracement back down to 217. If we do hold this, we could try to bounce. Now, just looking at the daily time frame on Amazon, you guys could see there's this gap down here at 213. If we end up rejecting off 220, look for 217. If that does not hold, we have that gap down there to fill. So we'll see how things end up going. We could always fill the gap and bounce later on, but it all depends on our data. For Meta has the same thing essentially going on. We're kind of rejecting off a bearish divergence double top. We want to see this bounce off 606. Otherwise, there's a risk of 599. For Meta, Microsoft has the same thing. We're on a very, very nice uptrend. We have to see if we can continue to break out for 445. Otherwise, there's a risk of some downside. Look at 440 as the main support, and we'll see how it ends up going. For Google's on a bit of a downtrend here, kind of rejected here. So we're looking for 173 as our main support. If that fails us, I'm looking for essentially 171.4. But overall, just know this. We are on a bit of a downtrend here, making lower highs right here. So we'll have to see how this ends up going. If we bounce off 173, we could attempt to get back up to 175. Otherwise, this will continue to dip. Anyways, that is it for my video. Just know that as far as tomorrow goes, it depends on this data that's coming out. Will we get a decent unemployment to cause a bounce or not? And then if the market continues to fall at support, there's going to be that risk of downside, of course, that could drag NIO lower. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. I'll see you guys very soon in my next video in just a day from now. Anyways, take care and peace out.